having commitment doesn't mean that, their marriage was perfect or they never, got into it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, divorce wasn't really an option for him, is the way that he kind of communicated that message. And I think that was really powerful now as an adult and, in a marriage and, being married for 13 years and understanding that, the power of the commitment and just seeing that from my dad is really important.
All right, my friends, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. Levi, welcome to the podcast. How you feeling today?
Hey, thanks so much, Ned. I am feeling great. I'm excited to be here with you today. And thanks for having me.
Dude, okay, so right out the gate, man, we met a few months ago at a men's event in Breckenridge, Colorado, and you changed my life. So I'm not joking you. So I've had a beard for 10, 12 years. I've been trying my darndest to get my mustache to look a certain way. I have a basket full of waxes in my, under my small section of the bathroom that my wife allows me to have. I could never find the right wax or the understanding of it. And you will get into it, but you have a beard and mustache company, which I'll ask you about in a bit. But dude, real quick, you brought some gear, you shared it with me, and in the kitchen, you showed me exactly what to do and how to do it. And literally, I love my mustache now, and I could not get it the way I wanted it.
Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. So appreciate you telling me that story. It means the world. We're honestly, we're the number one mustache wax in the world. And we have just a wide variety of men's grooming products, all sorts of stuff. Mustache is the focus. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing that for the last little over 5 years. And I always love to connect with people, especially men, of course, connect with men over their facial hair and hopefully give them a little boost in confidence when it comes to styling.
Well, dude, I'll tell you, because it's a little intimidating because, say I go on Instagram or I'm on Amazon and I'm trying to find the right wax. I'm like, well, I'm not going for dude, your mustache is on freaking point, right?
Right.
It's dialed. And I'm like, I wasn't really going for that certain look. So I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? And dude, you in literally 2 minutes and showing me the difference between a gnarly wax that I need to heat up with a blow dryer versus your one of your options that you had, which was dude, literally I just ran upstairs, put it in my fingers, put it in my just kind of did a little down and dirty. And then the ability to just carry it in my pocket. It is now a everyday carry for the most part in my pocket. Right. And it is, I can just clean it up after dinner. I can clean it up if we're walking into somewhere. So anyways, dude, I'm seriously, it's truly, I'm grateful for it. Really.
Well, that's awesome, and that was the sudden death wax. This is our number one best-selling product. I actually have that in my mustache right now as well. So it really hits on a variety of spectrums. Super versatile. You can be super styled up, or just a little bit, and get that natural look, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yes. I love it, dude. Okay. Well, I'll ask you more about that in a little bit. First question for you is, how old do you find yourself today?
How old do I find myself today? Yes. I mean, I find myself, I'd say about 15, 16, but in reality, according to my birth certificate, I guess I'm 35.
Okay. And in what ways are you 15 and in what ways are you 35 or maybe even 55?
Yeah, for sure. I always like to, keep things light, keep things energetic. I've tried really hard to not lose that love for life. And honestly, becoming a father has reignited that in me on a different level. It's helped me see things through the eyes of my children. And that's super special because we can get so bogged down with the responsibilities of life and work and career. And then sometimes you might think the fun gets taken out of it. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think I've always been kind of an old soul when it comes to understanding, the right path, I guess you might say, or, choices that are going to impact my future 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now.
That's good.
So even when I was very young, that came pretty natural to me. But at the same time, I've always also had a very energetic and lightheartedness to myself that I try to keep even, during challenging times in life, because life is going to throw some really hard stuff at you.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, sometimes not to take yourself so seriously, but also, this too will pass, right? When in certain scenarios, and just having the understanding that, it might be really hard for a moment or for a specific time period, but it's also not going to be that way. And then on the vice versa, sometimes when things are going really well, soak that in,
enjoy those
because
moments.
those moments are also fleeting, and that they're not always going to be the way that they are in that moment when things are going really well. So I don't know. I've always had like a little bit of a balance of an old soul, but I've always also had, for sure, that childlike life and vision of the world, and ability to appreciate, the beauties and just like the little details of life. And I think that's super important.
How do you pass that to your kids? It's always rough when your little ones, somebody teases them in second grade, or something happens in fifth grade or seventh grade. It's like, and they're used to this, like, probably beautiful unicorn rainbow world. But the reality is, like you said, is life can throw you some curveballs. It just does. Like, everybody experiences suffering to some extent. So how do you allow your kids to experience that, see that, and also choose joy or enjoy the moments where there doesn't seem to be suffering?
Man, that's a great question, Ned. And I'm probably going to be coming back to you for the answer to that one, because right now my oldest is 5. So my daughter Ivy, she's 5. My son's 3, Micah, and then my littlest Oakley just turned 1. So I don't feel like we're quite at that stage.
Yeah, you're at the unicorn rainbow
yet.
stage.
Exactly. So, but what I am seeing from this stage in life is absolutely incredible. Emotions are so on your sleeve at that age.
Mm-hmm.
So when things are great, man, you see it at a level that you just don't get to see with adults, right?
Yeah.
So like my son, he is into riding this little bike right now, and every day, every free moment, Dad, can I go outside and ride my bike with our neighbors, and can you come with me? And you just see him light up for that. My daughter, she just loves doing anything and everything, anything crafty. We did some cookies this earlier today, and
Nice.
wasn't exactly my favorite way to spend the morning, to be perfectly honest with you. Like I'm not loving these type of cookies. They're not my favorite type of cookie, and they're so much work. Like these were like the sugar cookies, where you got to make the cookies, then you got like 18 different colors, and then it's mess everywhere. So it wasn't my favorite way to spend the day, but it was really cool to see my daughter and the way that she was seeing that. But I think right now, what I've learned from my children, and also what also trying to teach them a little bit about it too, is just engaging with your emotions and your feelings. And but also I love the fact at this age is how quickly they're able to move on from something that happened. So there might be some sort of a little bit of a fight with with each other, and it is what it is, and you talk to them about it, and then they apologize and they make it right, and the rest of the days like that never happened. And I think so often I see in adults where one little thing will trigger somebody, and then 5 hours later you ask them how their day's going, and they're still talking about that thing that happened 5 hours ago when somebody cut them off in traffic or something like that. So that's been a cool thing to see with my young kids.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Levi, how many years you been married?
Wow. So let's see here. Put me on the spot here on this one. What are we at? 13 years coming up here.
Okay.
I want to say we got married in 2011. What does that put us? 14 years coming up?
Yeah.
Maybe we're 13 now. Yeah. So coming up on 14.
Cool. So you guys had some years being married together before you went down the path of having some kiddos.
Yeah.
How important was that, or what were some of the things that were important to you in cultivating a relationship with your spouse during those years?
Yeah. So, I mean, my wife and I, we got married fairly young in today's world. I don't think it would be young in, the course of history per se. But, Yeah, I was 22. My wife was 21 when we got married, and then she was still in school at the time. I had been playing college basketball,
Okay.
and you had 2 years of that. Ended up losing my scholarship, and focusing more on life at that point. We got married. And then let's see, my daughter's 6 now, or 5 years old now. She'll be 6 in October. So we had quite a while before we actually had our first child. How important was it? I don't know, to be honest with you. So so before we had our first daughter, Ivy, physically here on this earth, we had a miscarriage and then an ectopic pregnancy. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I do wonder if birth control had any effect on that, coming off of birth control. It's speculation, and I can't prove that. But going through that was a very difficult time.
Yeah, I bet.
Now, up until that, it is really nice. We were able to spend some time becoming more financially secure. That was a big benefit. We were able to do some traveling, which was really nice. And so we took a couple of really, really cool trips, through Europe. A nice trip to Iceland. We were in Hawaii. And so we were really able to do some really cool stuff like that. But I think that there's some different ways at looking at it, and there's no way to, truly know for sure. But I think that looking back now, I do question birth control and the effects that has on women when they do come off of it. And I'd really not been exposed to a lot of miscarriages, or definitely never even heard of an ectopic pregnancy when we went through that. And so that was an extremely challenging time in our life. For me, it's interesting. Like I said earlier, I've always had a little bit of an old soul in me, and there's only really been two things that I've ever known for sure that I just absolutely wanted this in life. And one of them was to play in the NBA, and then the other one was that I knew I wanted to be a father. And so, like, even from a very early age, becoming a father was something that I wanted. And I think part of that is because I had a wonderful father.
Yeah, that's incredible.
My pa, he was amazing. And so, seeing that and seeing just, my siblings, I loved, my brother and my sister have always been my best friends. And so, just kind of experiencing that at that level, I've always known that. And then when we went through a miscarriage, my world got turned upside down. Then, kind of recovered from that. My wife got pregnant fairly quickly again. It was actually her birthday. We went in for a checkup, and then they called us later that afternoon and said, "Hey, you need to go to the emergency room right now. It's an ectopic pregnancy." And she was at a point where when we did get to the hospital, for those of you who don't know, an ectopic pregnancy is where the egg and the sperm, it gets fertilized and attaches in the fallopian tube, which is not capable of sustaining a pregnancy. What will happen is the baby will grow, but then the fallopian tube will literally rupture, and then the woman can bleed out internally. And so we went in to the doctor that day, and I still had no idea what an ectopic pregnancy really was until we got to the hospital. And then they kind of told us that whole story. And she had to go through an emergency surgery. She was already bleeding out inside and didn't even know it. And of course, as you're going through it, they're doing ultrasounds, you're seeing the heartbeat, all this type of stuff. And then just like that, it's over.
Sad.
So that was a really challenging time that definitely questioned a lot of things on a lot of different levels. But God's good, and God worked things out for his purpose. And one thing that I've learned from that, and again, I can't say this will happen to myself in any situation or somebody else in any situation, but from my experience, not only with this, but in other circumstances in my life, I've really come to the realization that the things that I want most is not really until I have been able to truly let go of those things that God has then given them to me. And so I went through a time after that ectopic pregnancy, a lot of hurt, a lot of bitterness, a lot of just questions, a lot of, not understanding what was, why, what good could possibly come from this.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't really until I really came to a point where I realized I have no control whether or not I'm going to become a father, in that sense. And once I came to the point where I was actually okay with that, I was like, well, there's nothing else I can do. I can't, I think as men, we like to control things. We like to have control of the situation. And there's something that you have absolutely zero actual control over. We like to think that we do, but ultimately, God has control of that.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So when you then found out you were going to have your child that you have, when you held your baby for the first time, like you wanted to be a dad, at what point did it just kind of overwhelm you with joy and gratitude that you were made for this?
Oh man, I mean the whole experience, with Ivy was just incredible. You know, um, seeing your daughter for the first time. We did not. We didn't find out if she was going to be a boy or a girl the whole time. And so there was that extra surprise. And I think so often nowadays, literally, everything ahead of time, exactly when you order a package, where it's at on the way, when it's delivered, all this. And so there's really very few surprises that you can have nowadays. So it was a really fun experience to not know if she was a boy or a girl. And when she was born and I got to, hold her for the first time and see her. And at first, the first thing I said was, "Oh no, she's a girl. How am I ever going to say no?" I think that's the first thing I told my wife. I've got a soft, and there's no doubt that she is that spot that it's as a dad with her being my firstborn daughter. She's got me wrapped around her little finger, as they say. But it was overwhelming, holding her for the first time, seeing the beauty of life and just how, knowing how fragile life is and how much of a gift it is to be a father. It really, I think, has helped me be a better father, having those, the miscarriage and the ectopic pregnancy, because I realized that I really shouldn't have this opportunity right now. And so
it's a gift, right? It's like, it's even more of awareness because it took you out of the control of like, I made this happen, because you had an experience with it, that you really understand that this is a gift. And for so many of us, it's just like, if we just had the kids, we didn't have those experiences. We might have to lean into that belief and understanding that this is a gift.
Absolutely.
Truly a gift.
And for me personally, I've taken that to every aspect of my life. So not only my children, but like, it's very easy to think, oh, I built this company, or it's me that's causing this success. And the more, because of that, I realized that it's not, I mean, I've done things to make this, successful, but ultimately, God's put me in this position. God's given me these tools, these resources to be successful. And there's really no reason that, mustaches should be successful from a business perspective. I mean, there really isn't. And so that's something that I'm very thankful for, and that I can look at my life now that I couldn't have said, 5.5, 6 years ago when we were going through that hurt.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I have a totally different understanding. Everything in this material world is not mine. And I know that for a fact. And I know that none of it's coming with me except for my children. That's the only thing in this material world that that's going to be coming with me when I die. And so, understanding it that way has been
the way
powerful.
You stewarded it. I think you bring up some good points. I feel like as men and human beings, we do have an incredible opportunity to create, right? So I do have a brain, I do have hands, I can go create, I can make things.
Absolutely.
But it's really stewarding that gift to create, not necessarily like I just created it out of my thin air of nothing. Like I remember there's some joke, some church joke about these scientists who went and they were like competing with God to make things, and God was like, oh, hang on, you got to bring your own dirt, something like that, right? So like,
Sure.
sure, we can make stuff, but we have the resources and the tools to do it. So with that being said, though, I don't know if enough of us really walk with that humility that you were able to gain from the situations you found yourself in, because stewardship starts with not just this understanding that I can create and make things, but that it starts with a gift. Like, this is an opportunity to do this, right? And so you really see that clearly. I love that, because I think sometimes as men we can get so caught up in providing, like I'm the provider,
Absolutely.
that we kind of cut God out of it, right? Like, no, I did all this. And especially as Americans, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't need God to feed myself, right? It could be easy to fall into that. Okay, so 3 kids, married 13 years, ages 1 to 6. Where do you guys do life? Where do you guys live?
Yeah, we're here in Woodland Park, Colorado, and very blessed to have a beautiful home, and we're on 5 acres.
Oh,
The back
sweet.
borders the national forest, so it really feels like 500,000 acres.
Yeah.
Because it just backs right up to it. Born and raised here in Colorado, so kind of a Coloradan through and through, and we I grew up, both my wife and I grew up in Colorado Springs, which is just 16 miles down the mountain from us, but it's a totally different climate. We have live in a forest, and we've got Pikes Peak, America's mountain, just in our backyard, that we get to enjoy God's beauty, look into the mountains, and so that's really where we do it. My business here is literally 2 miles from my house, maybe less. I don't even know for sure, but it's literally just right down the hill from my house. So right now we've been very tucked and nested into this spot over the last 6 years. We moved up here right before my daughter was born, and we've been up here ever since.
Beautiful. So what do you guys like to do outside? So with your kids' ages right now, and you are on 5 acres and you're out, you have the outdoors, what are some things that your family likes to do outside?
Oh man, just literally anything outdoors. We love camping. We love just, being at home. We've got just a little bit of grass that we'll put up a little splash pad or pool on in the summertime. In the wintertime, we're sledding constantly. So we're on a hill. So we have some pretty intense sledding courses that we do.
Yes.
So a lot of sledding in the wintertime, hiking. We love to explore. Hiking with 5, 3, and 1 is more of a slow pace, but we do a lot of exploring and looking at the different trees and pine cones and mosses and mushrooms that are growing. So that's really cool to do outside. Fishing. We love to get out and go fishing. That's one of our favorite things to do. We've got a couple lakes not too far from us that we can fish from the shore from. And then my uncle has a pontoon boat, so he'll take us out on that a couple times a year, which is a lot of fun. So really just anything outside in the sun, biking. Yeah, my kids have just gotten into these little scooter bikes where really good for learning, where you don't have pedals or anything. You just kind of scoot on them. And so that's been really fun to watch. Little, power wheels, driving those around. But yeah, anything outdoors, we're all about that. We usually after breakfast, the patio door opens up, and then we're outside for most of the day, especially once the weather's warmed up like it is.
Cool, man. Love that. Yeah, being outside is so important for the kids. Okay, we alluded to it at the beginning, and you mentioned it now, but if you could just take like 2-3 minutes, tell me about your business, your passion for it, what you do, and where people can find you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Death Grip and deathgripwax.com. We're available also on Amazon in the United States, Canada, UK, and now Germany and the EU. So you can find us on those places. But we make all natural men's grooming products: mustache waxes, beard oils, shave soaps, shave oils, head, beard, and body bars. just any, almost, we got a really wide variety of different products. We focus on the mustache, and then we kind of have built around that with complementary stuff, hair pomades, clays, stuff like that. And we use just all natural ingredients to make everything right here in Woodland Park at our HQ. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been doing this for the last 5 years.
Awesome. Yeah, dude. So I'd say, dads, if you have a beard, if you have a mustache, go support a local dad who's feeding his family through making rad products to support you and I. Now, if just give us the two products. So if I have a mustache, bring it up again, that I just want it to not look dumb, and I want it to, be able to pull to the side. What wax am I going to use? And then what do I want to put in my beard to keep it fresh, to keep it tight, and not have hairs like all over the place?
Heck yeah. So when it comes to mustache, we got the sudden death mustache wax.
That's the jam right there.
Easy to use, super versatile. You can get really creative with it. You can be really simple with it. It really meets any need that you need for a mustache. So that'd be your number one product right there. For a beard, we've got beard oil and beard balm. Favorite scent here is called the Barber's Choice scent.
Nice.
As far as the beard oil goes, it's vanilla, lavender, and bergamot are the scent profiles. And we use all natural scents. So they're coming from, actual real vanilla, real lavender, real bergamot. It's not hormone disrupting chemical fragrances. And then as far as hair goes, Slayer clay. That's the way to go with the hair. So the Slayer clay for styling the hair.
Love it. When would you use a beard oil versus like a beard balm? So like I got the beard balm. Yeah. That's typically what I use, just to kind of hold all the hairs in and make it look shaped, but just
absolutely
education wise.
Yeah, part of it is preference for sure. Okay. So the oil is going to really be able to get down underneath your hairs into your skin, and so you can really get that oil down there. Balm is going to give you a little bit of taming. So if you're seeing flyaways, you're going to probably prefer a balm. If you're really trying to get a little bit of shaping to it. Most balms are not a lot, it's not a strong hold. Some are a little bit heavier than others, but so if you're looking to shape and style just a little bit, a balm. If you're just looking to nourish, condition, and strengthen your hair and skin and smell good, then the oil is going to be just perfect.
Cool, man. Okay, thank you for that. And then one thing I do love about the mustache wax, and it's the beard balm too, but when you open it up, there's a guitar pick in there. And so it's like a branded guitar pick that I can just scrape out just enough of what I want, get it on my fingers, get it worked in there, get it into my beard and mustache. I just think it's like such a classy, other than like I'm trying to scrape my fingernail in there or, whatever else I would do. It works really well. Genius.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The guitar pick is also it really took the place of business cards for me. So I don't, when somebody hey, do you have a business card? I just say I don't, but here's a guitar pick, and it takes them right to the website or to Amazon, wherever you wanted to go. So it's a lot of fun.
Cool, man. Love it. Okay, so in your opinion, what is the role of the father, right? You're stepping into this, you've got little kids, you're in this fun season of like playing outside with them and they just want to ride the bike every day or whatever. As you see how you will show up the next, 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, what is the role of the father?
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately it's to love above all else. I think that's my top role as a father. But I think providing is also really, really important. Protecting, guiding, coaching, role modeling. So like you want to be able to, your kids are going to see what you're doing, and they're going to, you may be able to tell them something, but if you're not living up to what you're telling them, it's not going to go as far as if you are just modeling what behaviors you're wanting them to see. Yeah. So I think that's really important. I think that, also a huge part of that is being a father is being a husband and showing your children what a healthy relationship looks like, because if they're going off of what they're seeing online or, in the movies or whatnot, they're probably not going to have a very good baseline on what to go off of. Mm-hmm. And so I think as a father, that's a huge part of it. I think being present is another one. It's really, really easy to, get pulled in all the different directions and all the different responsibilities. And so being present is really, really big when it comes to that and one of your roles. But I think being a father is almost like being a Leatherman. You got to have like every single, there's so many different aspects
I like that.
that a father is. And it's,
Yeah.
you're the multi-tool. The father is really, who they look to when things are going wrong, but also who they want to be looking at them when things are going right as well.
Ooh,
and
I love
so
that.
that's a really one way that I look at it is kind of like a multi-tool.
Dude, that's a really powerful statement. When things are going right, they want you to see them. And when things are going wrong, you want them to look to you. And that's a great, can you cultivate that, fathers? Right. So when things are going wrong, how is it that you respond to the moment? Because if you react and you're an idiot a-hole, they're going to realize that you're not safe to look to when things are going wrong. And man, those are two opportunities. It's funny. The other night we had a couple dads and their sons over. We sat around the fire, talk story. And we were talking about this thing of like, why do we as men or I mean, kids really, it's like, dad, watch, dad, see this, dad, watch my backflip, dad, watch my wheelie, dad. They just want to be seen to their core. Like they were born with this desire to be seen by you and I. So dads, are we pausing to see them? And then when shit hits the fan, are the kids' response like, let me talk to my dad. Let me go to my dad. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have all the answers. I don't think that's the reason. Yeah. It's that, are you the oak tree? Are you the safe place to go to? And so it's more comfort than it is answers. With those two things in tension, right? The tension of being the guy for both of those. How do you, Levi, especially in having a rad company and a rad brand, which could be easy to fall into it getting the best of you, right? Your best energy, your best time, your best creativity. How do you balance? Because one of the things you said in role was that being present. So how do you stay present, be present with your kiddos while also having the tie or the pull to go lead this rad brand?
Yeah, it's a daily challenge, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes, especially with the way that my company's set up, I can do a lot of the work that I need to do from my home. And so I'm home a lot, but making sure that I'm present, that's the challenge. And that's the part that's really, constantly, something I'm working on, because I can be there for them. I can be there for, all day, almost every day. But my mind is what I find the most challenging to engage in what is actually happening around me versus what I know that the next move might be in the business, or the next competitions that are coming up, or shows, or whatever.
Yeah.
Next products that you wanting to launch, all that type of stuff. And I'm not perfect at this by any means. But I think what I've been trying to do is, number one, I mean, we definitely try to, say no phones at the tables, and really focus on each other during that time. And, just finding as much, time to engage as possible. I don't have the answer to this, to be 100% honest with you. And I think that as men, we're going to always struggle with being present, in, one way or the other, or the scale may tip a little bit farther for one season, and then a little bit more on the other. But at the same time, it's been really nice, because my youngest son, Oakley, so he was actually born with his skull was fused together. And we kind of had a feeling something was maybe a little bit off at birth, just because of the shape of his head. And then as we went to different appointments over the first few months, we found out that his skull was actually fused together from the soft spots that are on a newborn. And that's not supposed to happen until literally when you're like in your 20s is when they fully fuse together.
Whoa. They're
pretty well fused by the time they're like 5, 6, 7 in that age. But it's still expanding, still growing. And so what was happening there is his head was growing really elongated, like a football, and causing pressure within his skull as well, and his brain, and stuff like that. So we ended up we knew that we were going to have to take him in for a pretty serious surgery in September of last year. He was born in
Wow.
March. And, and again, so that was something that, you know, you think, man, how could anything good come from this? But man, let me tell you, those months from March of last year when he was born until September were just different. And I chose to spend a lot of days just on my patio porch swing, holding my son while he was napping, and just spending that time with him. Because again, you know, they took an inch wide strip of his skull, and it was over 4 inches long. So a really large chunk of his skull, and they, you know, incision from one ear to the other. So it was really scary.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
really, you know, for you know, my wife Hannah and I, that was a very, you know, challenging time, and a time that really, you know, just you have to trust that that God's ultimately, he's in God's hands, and then B, that the doctors, you know, are also, you know, doing what they do, and knowing how to help him. But that was one of those things where it was like, man, it was another situation that ultimately was very scary, but because of it, last summer was very relaxing. And like, yes, there was the stress of what was we knew what was coming, but at the same time, I engaged with not only him but my other kids, I think, at a different level throughout that time, where if he would have not needed that surgery, it would have been really easy to get back into, you know, the hustle and the grind of running a business.
Yeah, it seems like you've had, I mean, just you've shared already 2 stories which bring you to this like life is precious moment, right?
Absolutely.
Like a deep awareness that this again, going back to the control, I can't control whether my kid is healthy or not. I mean, obviously I could feed them well, you know, but as far as if they're born, right? So wow, these moments of life matters, right? So that's kind of these constant reminders to not let yourself get pulled too far away.
It is.
Yeah, the other thing you said that I really like and I would like us to consider is, I think a lot of times we go, how do kids spell love? Well, it's TIME, right? Our time, which is true and accurate. But am I giving my kids my mind? That was a thing that you said, is mind, right? Because I could be on a walk with my kid or driving them to school, and all I'm thinking about is, you know, what I'm working on in my business. So yeah, sure, I'm present, you know, as far as like time goes, but my mind may be somewhere else.
Exactly. And that's something that I'm constantly working on, because, you know, as the business owner, as an entrepreneur, there's always some sort of a fire going on that you're having to put out, some sort of a situation, right? But there's also some sort of an opportunity that you're excited about and that you want to pursue. And it can be very challenging because your mind likes to almost replay those things just over and over and over. And so sometimes one of the things that I found is actually taking action. So like, if there is something that needs to be done, rather than just putting it off, but if you do have the ability to take some sort of action on it immediately, then I've found that my mind is less likely to keep going, you know, replaying, well, what if this happens, or what if I made this move, or whatever. And it might be as simple as just, you know, for me, sending a quick message to somebody, or maybe it's, you know, running to my headquarters real quick and testing out a new idea that I had, you know, and just say, hey, you know, I need this time to go do that real quick. I'll be right back. And then we can, you know, get on with our life. But you're never going to be perfect at it. And so I think as fathers, you do have to give yourself grace and understand that you're striving for that perfection, but you're never going to meet it.
Yeah, a couple of things that have helped me over the years is I used to, when I was like 30, I'm 41 now, I would work until like 5, and then I'd go do dinner and all these things. And then I'd go work again from like, you know, when the kids went to bed for a couple of hours. And sure, there's probably seasons where, yeah, you do just got to put the time in, right, to like feed your family. But then my wife was like, you're not really here from 5 to 8 because you're just thinking about what you're going to work on at 8:30 or 9. So I stopped working after 5. So that really helped me. And then the other thing is like I time block now. So when an idea comes into my head, I use like Asana, and I'll real quick just put it into like a task list to see later, and go,
Yeah.
that's to think about Monday at 10 a.m. or Tuesday at whatever. So I'm like trained myself to think about it later, to go, this time isn't for that, but I have a time set aside for that. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely not perfect at it, but it's a
Right.
work in progress.
I like that idea. Yeah, that's great because you're acknowledging you had this idea. You don't want to forget about it.
Yeah.
And so you're putting it somewhere where you will remember to come back to it.
Yeah, otherwise my mind's just going to work on it, right? It's just going to like
Exactly.
solve the problem. Like, this time isn't for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask you a question. I have only asked a few people. It's something new that I'm asking people who are followers of Christ or believers, whatever you want to call it. How do you want to pass your faith to your kids? So when you think about your kids at 18, 20, 25, 30, is one of your desires to pass your faith to your kids? And if so, how do you want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, when I think about that question, I think about it as far as like, well, what's truly important? And so often we think of, well, especially as kids, well, it's learning, it's school, it's academics. And yes, that is important. You do want to be sure that your kids know how to read and know how to write and know how to do math and know how to problem solve and think critically and all of that type of stuff. But ultimately, thinking through it, what my wife and I are trying to do is to really set the standard that no, it's really the gospel. It's this. It's the saving grace that Jesus has given us that we want to establish as what is literally the most important, and then everything else is great, and there's super benefits to that. But ultimately, if there was one thing to pass down for my kids, that would be it. And it doesn't mean that you don't ever have questions, and that I want them to know that that's okay, and I want them to understand that having faith doesn't mean that you know everything. It doesn't mean that you know everything perfectly. It doesn't mean that you don't sometimes have doubts or have questions. But what I do want them to understand is that your life is going to be so much better if you have a relationship with Christ. And if you understand these laws, which are that you are given gifts and you want to do the best with your gifts, but ultimately, God's going to be the one that decides what happens with what you do with it. And also just understanding that we are very, very blessed to live where we live in America. I know that it's not a perfect place, but the opportunities that we have here in America give us an unfair advantage. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, I think oftentimes we can take unwarranted credit for that. And it's not a bad thing, but I think that oftentimes that you can lose that sense of, give us today our daily bread. Well, I've got bread for the next 5 years stashed away, so why do I need to ask for my daily bread if that's the case? And so it's really just understanding that, ultimately you still have to trust and rely on God and understand that this is all, just temporary, and you're going to do your best with everything that you've been given, stewardship of. So yeah, it's one of those things where, again, when we're trying to think about, okay, well, we could be learning random history facts right now, as kind of pre-kindergarten stuff. We've really been trying to focus on teaching our children the Word of God and the Bible and the different stories that have been passed down through generations and recorded.
Yeah, so more identity, right? So you're talking about identity, like who you are is going to be more core to my knowledge, right? And you're not saying knowledge isn't important, like gain that, but don't gain that in lieu of knowing who you are. Don't let that define you. Something you said, and something you said stuck out to me is, born in America, unfair advantage. And it just stuck out to me. And I know you're just like sharing, But it's interesting that I think, yes, it's an unfair advantage if we take advantage of it in to serve ourselves only. But it's an opportunity, right? I think to whom much is given, much is required. And sometimes I think that's a bit where we're missing the boat sometimes as Americans. Is like, and we're not perfect. Like we think we're so awesome, which doesn't matter really. But what matters is what do we do with our awesomeness, right? What do we do with our wealth? What do we do with our blessings? What do we do with it? Like if I'm so blessed, is this because I'm special or I'm better than somebody? No, it's because I've been entrusted to do something wise with it for the world. So and that can only come to knowing who you are, right? And if you follow the gospel message, it all comes down to like, are you loving others? And today's great. So today's Holy Thursday, Maundy Thursday, right? You know, Passover, Last Supper. And at that in John 13, Jesus said, a new command I give you, love one another. Like that's what he said to his dudes before he's going to go get on the cross. Like this is what matters. Go and love people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when
100.
when you teach your kids like who they are, where they come from, and you really dig into this overall story of the Bible, that's the thing. That the thing is family, right? Okay, with that being said, I want to ask you a couple questions around this, but you said your dad was incredible, great dad. What's something you really appreciated about your dad? And then what's something you wish your dad did differently? Not that you would actually go back and have him do it differently, but I think it more opens the idea to like, hey, your kids are going to say something about you when they're 35, right? So if you can kind of foresee what that is, then maybe you can make shifts yourself now. So what do you appreciate about your dad? What do you wish he did different?
Yeah. So, the things that I appreciate about my dad was that, there's so many things. So it's really hard to tie this into one, but I think that A would be just the commitment and the love that he has had for my mom. I think that is really powerful, especially in the day and age that we live. It's rare. And, having commitment doesn't mean that, their marriage was perfect or they never, got into it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, divorce wasn't really an option for him, is the way that he kind of communicated that message. And I think that was really powerful now as an adult and, in a marriage and, being married for 13 years and, understanding that, the power of the commitment and just seeing that from my dad is really important. My dad's always been a simple man, and he has never been materialistic when it comes to things. He's always had the ability to, make things last longer than they should. My mom and dad drove, a 1980 International Scout throughout my entire childhood, and an old VW bus with the pop top camper. And and so they were, super cool cars, but they didn't always work properly. And he would always figure out a way to keep them running. And he, going back to the materialistic, he knew from a fairly young age that he didn't want to get caught up in kind of the rat race of America, that side of it. And so as soon as he could, he got out of that and started kind of investing in property and fixing them up himself, and then relying on income from rentals to provide for his family, which again allowed him to be at home a lot more than your typical dad would be. It allowed him to, take me to all sorts of different tournaments across the country that I was playing basketball in.
Yeah, that's cool.
All that type of stuff. And so that was really cool to see him model. As far as something that, I think I would not want from him or would have loved to see differently was he got into the stock market a little bit, dabbled with that. And I don't know all the details, whether or not he was, making 10% or 50% or 100% or down or whatnot. But what I do remember growing up was that the stock market, whatever the stock market was doing was the mood that my dad was in. So when the stock market was going up, the high was high. And then when the stock market was going down, it was DEFCON 5. We're going to be eating beans and rice for the next 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that gave me a hesitancy to invest in the stock market, because I just said, you know what? I would rather not have any money than to have my day dictated by this market. And so, not that I haven't, dabbled a little bit into it, but it's honestly worked out for my benefit, because I've just invested in my own company instead of investing in all these other companies.
Yeah. Love it.
So I'm not saying that, if that would have changed that, XY, I don't say that, but I do know that I would have loved to not dealt with those days where I was like, man, it's a beautiful day. Like, why is dad upset? And then understanding once I could, stock market's down today. And so we lost a lot of money. And I was like, well, I don't care. Like, we're fine, so.
Dude,
that was kind of my thing.
Yeah, dude, really awesome awareness and to share. And I think for you and for me and for all the dads listening, what is the thing that can dictate your mood, right?
Yeah.
Or what are you giving the power to dictate your mood that then your kid in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now is going to be like, they experienced you like you're experiencing life as a 40-year-old dad or whatever, right? And you're like, this is your thing on the stock market. Yeah, okay. But your kids and those around you are experiencing you from your response, right? So
absolutely.
What are the things? Yeah, dude, I mean, I remember, so my twins are 15, almost 16 now. And I remember when they were 12, I heard them I'm like, how are you? I don't remember the context, but I'm so stressed. We're so stressed. And I'm like, oh, crap. They are just repeating me, right? So I'll get teased by my family. I'm getting way better at this, but that there's work Ned and fun Ned, essentially. So and it's like, dang, that sucks. I don't want to be that way. So something for us to think about as dads. Now, Levi, I have one sort of burning question from something you said earlier that I'm hoping you have a secret for all of us that we can walk away from. So no pressure.
All right. We'll see.
I'm sure this has to do with your mom and dad and in growing up, but you made a statement. You said that your siblings, you have a brother and a sister. Is that right? Is that what you said? Okay.
I do.
Yeah. You said that they were your best friends. So here's my question to you. I think all of us would love for our children to really understand the value of the friendships that they have the opportunity to have together. So how is that created and cultivated in your home that statement could be made? And then how are you going to bring that same truth into your own family?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I give my mom a lot of credit for this. Okay. So number one, my mom homeschooled us. So the three of us, not only were we, brother and sister, we were also classmates, and then we were also friends. And so, and then on top of that, we talk about that old VW bus my dad had. He would load us all up in that, and then we'd go spend a month on the beach in Port Aransas, Texas, or we'd drive it all the way across the country to New England and learn about the Pilgrims through actually seeing it or visit sites of the Civil War. And so both of my parents were very engaged when it came to our education and our learning. And a lot of it was because of that and a very tight space. Now, don't get me wrong, that very tight space could also end up as an explosive device in a lot of ways. But we always, my mom always, drove into the fact that, friends will always come and go, but your family is going to be there. Yep. And, whether it comes to really great times or really difficult times, if your family is built that way, and if that's part of who you guys are as a family, and my mom and dad, they were that way. So if there was something going really well or something that one of us needed to be, everybody to be a part of, we were all there and we were supporting each other. And that doesn't mean that I always enjoyed, going to my sister's ballet performances or helping my brother set up a booth at of carnivorous plants. But it was also nice when I was having a basketball game and I could look in the stands and see my brother and sister and my family there. So it goes both ways. And I think if you can see that, you can see that your family is your biggest asset. Your kids are your biggest asset. And as a young kid, you know, if you can build that, and I think it's also just, you know, helping them understand that as soon as possible from a young age,
Yeah.
that, you know, this is your brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
You may not be getting along right now, but as a family, we're going to figure out how we can work past that. So I do think it starts at a really young age. I do think it's just being engaged with your family
Mm-hmm.
and making sacrifices. I mean, my parents made sacrifices to, again, be driving an old vehicle or multiple old vehicles. You know, we moved in with my grandma. And so instead of, you know, having a bunch of financial stress in that area, my parents were able to shift that towards their children.
Mm.
And so, you know, again, thinking about the choices that you're making, are they really necessary for your family, or is it
Mm.
more of an ego thing? Is it, you know, trying to, you know, beat that next door neighbor with a nicer car or a nicer house? And really thinking that through, I think, has a huge effect, because as kids, you really don't need that much stuff. I know that
Mm-hmm.
we have way too much stuff even in our home right now.
Yeah.
But what you do need is you need that interaction with your siblings if possible, and and your parents, like especially at a young age. I mean, I know it changes as kids grow, but I've been very blessed to be able to spend a lot of time, you know, with my kids, doing things with them and, you know, teaching them about life from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. And I think that those experiences are so powerful where, you know, so many people think, oh, well, they're not going to remember that when they grow up. I would be shocked. You'd be surprised what things you do remember when you grow
Mm-hmm.
up. And, you know, some of these old memories that you have, you know, you weren't that old. If you're honest with yourself, I think that trauma, you know, is one of those things that our body does try to, you know, forget to a certain extent, but also remember. And so I do think, like, the way that America is set up is not really set up for you to be best friends with your brothers and sisters.
Mm.
And so, like, oftentimes in America, from a very young age, we're saying that, well, we have to do this in order to, you know, provide for our family at a level. And that may mean, you know, sending them to a daycare when they're very little or whatever. And I understand that some people don't have a choice and that
Yeah.
is what they have to do. But ultimately, you know, and then the same thing, you know, as unfortunate as it is, but when you're raising families as single mothers or single
Yeah.
fathers, it's very difficult to create the environment to become best friends with your siblings, to have
Yeah.
that relationship. So I really do think that there's a lot of aspects to it, and a lot of it is generational, because
Mm-hmm.
if you grow up in a home where your parents still have really good relationships with their siblings, then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to want to pass that down. And so, to a certain extent, some people may have to be breaking that generational curse, so to speak, and being that first person in their family line in a long time to make those commitments and to really push for those type of things. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a 100% answer for you, but I do think thinking through my childhood and
Yeah.
thinking through the way that I grew up and the way that my parents were able to be involved, were able to, you know, and again, I'm a huge proponent of homeschooling. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna, you know, be a proponent. Not that, you know, you can't be successful in a public school setting, but you are so involved with your kids, and it's so hard. I already know, you know, like, I didn't appreciate my mom at the level that I do now, right? Because, like,
Yeah.
you know, thinking about it now and the difficult that, you know, how difficult it is, and that's why it's not done as much, because it is super hard to truly be engaged in teaching your kids. But I do think that there's some benefit to that I've experienced in my own life,
Yeah.
and that's where I can speak to it from my own experience. And again, not to say that you can't be successful in a public school setting or in different ways, but that's just my personal take on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you shared a bunch of good insight. And, you know, if I were to kind of summarize what I heard, it became a priority, right? So for your parents, it was a
Mhm.
priority to create space for the kids to be together.
Absolutely.
And then same for you, right? And so the question I think us dads can ask is like, can you just pause right now? Just pause for a second. And are you stuck in this? I'm working really hard. We're really busy. We're not really together because one day we're going to be. And is that a trap or a lie you've fallen into?
Yes.
Could you do something drastic? Could you do something different? Could you downgrade some things so that you could create space? Because man, this window is short. Like, dude, I sent my first kid off to college, you know, and I'm looking, I've got
Wow.
3 who are going to be moving out within the next 2 years. So I actually just quit a couple things because I was like, whoa, like I had 2 trips planned this year that were like personal development, you know, growth, whatever stuff. And I'm like, holy smokes, those are 2 weeks that I could just be home. I don't want to give those to somebody else or something else, even to myself. I want to go be with my kids. So, to get this awareness of like, are your priorities in line right now? Really important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Dude, my friend, this has been incredible. Any last thoughts, stories, anything that kind of comes to mind before I ask you my final 2 questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only other thing that I would really put out there is you know, never stop chasing your dreams as well as a father, because what I want my kids to see is I want them to see that it's possible. It's possible to be chasing your dreams. It's possible to be an entrepreneur while still
Dude, hang
having.
on. Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I lost your audio.
Let me see here. Give me just 1 second.
It could be my end. Let's see. Check.
Did it run out of battery?
Let's see.
Here we go. Let's just switch this one out. We'll probably need the other one. All right. Can you hear me now? Are we back?
Check.
Checking.
Looks like you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I cannot hear you.
It's working.
I don't think anything changed.
Testing. Maybe we just take it out for the last little bit. Ned, can you hear me now? Any luck?
Try talking.
Can you hear me now? Testing. 1, 2, 3.
It's weird because I can see what the heck's happening.
Maybe.
God,
testing. 1, 2, 3.
On the bottom, do you see your mic? You see? Oh yeah, you're on it.
Yeah, I can see it, but
on your speaker,
it's going to have battery. It did have battery. Strange. We could try plugging it back in, but I don't know that it's gonna work. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Well,
keep trying. Let me try a couple things over here. If I change my speakers.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Yes, I got you now.
Are we back?
Let me try now. Go again.
Testing. I heard myself echo for a second.
It's on my end. It's not on your end.
Yeah, no worries. Testing.
How about now?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Yes, I got you.
All right.
Because.
All right.
This is so funky. Let me try one last thing because it's not in the right spot. All right. Dude, I'm sorry.
Good. No, you're good.
Okay, try. Okay, you say you're talking. All right, give me one more.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Can't hear you.
Nope.
All right. I'm just gonna switch over to this.
Yeah.
And we'll try that. All right, go ahead.
Testing.
Okay. All right, I got you. We're just gonna rock with this. Okay. So little technical difficulties for a minute there, but go ahead. I asked, was there any last stories, thoughts before I ask my last 2 questions?
Yeah. So I mean, what I was saying is that I think it's important to continue to chase your dreams and to model that to your kids. I think so oftentimes we get caught up with the responsibilities of being a father, and we think that our dreams are maybe over at that point. But if you can take your kids and understand that they're actually your biggest asset to achieving your dreams and your life, your career, all that, just bring them along with you for the ride. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but I want to encourage other men to not give up on what they feel God has put in them as their purpose or their dream, and still chase that. And it doesn't mean that that's going to happen overnight either. I spent 10 years working at Starbucks, and I did not necessarily feel like that was my dream. Whoops.
You there?
I'm back, I think, or you're back. Okay. One of the two.
One of us is back. Dude, I never have issues. I'm super sorry. So you're talking about pursuing your dreams and bringing your kids along with you.
Absolutely. But also on that same note, whatever you're doing right now, do it with all your heart. Give it everything you got. The doors will open, because I never thought I was going to be running a mustache wax company. I never thought that that could be my dream.
Yeah.
That could be my purpose. That could be, what's impacting others. But when you're in that place where you're giving it everything you got in whatever you're in that season, other doors will open, and you'll be able to find out what that really is.
Mm. I love that. It kind of goes along with one of my questions was going to be, this podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. You're doing it, sharing your life with us. But the mantra is rebel and create. And the question I asked men is like, what's something you're rebelling against? And not just to tear something down, but to create something in its place. And so maybe it's that, but does anything else come to mind of something you're rebelling against and what you're creating in its place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is what it is, honestly, because, society is not telling you that you're going to be successful when you have a family. It's telling you
Mm.
the opposite. Wait as long as possible to have kids, or once you do have kids, your life is over. And so, what I want to do is I want to encourage men to continue to find their purpose, constantly pursuing their true potential, and understand that your kids, your wife, that's your greatest asset. That's your greatest
Mm.
advantage. That's your superpower to becoming the father and the man that you were meant to be.
Yes, beautiful. All right, my friend. My last question is a legacy question. So imagine 30 years from now, your daughter's going to be 35. She'll be your age today. If you were standing out in a cul-de-sac, peering inside the homes of your families, what would you hope to see that would put a smile on your face, tear in your eye to go like, okay, I showed up, I did my job?
Yeah. For me, it's just, dad loved, and not just dad loved us, but just that dad loved every aspect of life. So whether it
Mm.
was a good moment or a challenging moment, dad was there loving. Same thing when dad was maybe taken advantage of or not treated fairly in a situation, dad still loved in that moment,
Mm.
and
That's good.
he held himself to that standard across all aspects of life. And if I can leave that as my legacy, I'll be pretty happy.
Yes. Levi, brother, thank you for the way that you pursue life. Thank you for the way you love your wife, your kiddos, the rad products you create to support rad dads. I just much love and blessing to you and your family, dude. And I look forward to our paths crossing again in the future. And thanks for sharing your stories with us today.
Ned, I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me on here. I really enjoyed our time together as always, and looking forward to seeing you again back out here in Colorado, and maybe one day in Hawaii as well.
Yeah, dude, love it. And one last time, tell people where they can find your products.
Yeah, guys, Death Grip Wax on Instagram, all the social media platforms, deathgripwax.com, as well as Amazon, Death Grip or Death Grip Wax. You're going to find us. We got that gold standard across all our products. So when you see that gold tin, that's us.
Love it. All right, my friend. Until next time.